So with that, we will go ahead and get started. And we do have on the screen here the mission statement for the Mariners Museum and Park. One of the things that we try and promote to our visitors is that we connect people to the world's waters because that's how we are connected to each other. And that's something we always try and infuse to our programs and try and uh, implement and get across to our visitors as they come into the museum. But this year, Black History Month looks a little differently due to the state of our world and everything as we continue fighting this pandemic. But Black History Month is very important to us here at the museum, not just for the Department of Interpretation, but for the institution as a whole. And we were not going to let the opportunity pass to continue doing programming, even though it's done a little differently through virtual means versus in-person interactions as we would prefer. But with that being said, we have a lot of really great things, and I'll let Wisteria talk a little bit more about that down the road. I just mostly wanted to talk about some of the, is it, I don't think my screen moved. Hang on one second. There we go. Sorry, we've had a couple little few technical difficulties as we've gotten started here. It seems they may be following us into the program, but luckily we're used to it and we can make it work. So Black History Month is also referred to as African American History Month, and it does begin every February 1st and goes through the end of February, whether it's the 28th or even the 29th on a leap year. It's basically an annual observance, primarily here in the United States, but it has spread to other countries as well. Just celebrating the contributions that Africans, Blacks, and African Americans have made in our shared history here in America and throughout the world as well. And a lot of that does have to do with their struggle for freedoms and equalities. But the more we talk about it, the more it helps deepen our understanding of our, here specifically, our nation's history and how we continue to grow from learning what has come and how we continue to move from that. Um, we also take this time to not just learn about Blacks here locally in the United States, but looking back even further to the development of Africa as a continent and the people who live within that space as well. So just seeing what their presence has been like and their contributions have been on a world stage, both past, present, and again, looking into the future. So oftentimes when we look at Black African or African American history, it's done through a lens of oppression and enslavement. Here are a couple images from our collection here, just kind of portraying a lot of those, the 400 years of captivity that African Americans, and Blacks have endured, from the transatlantic slave trade. The top image on the kind of left there shows the way Blacks were, for lack of a better term, crammed into tight spaces on ships and then transported for months at a time across the Atlantic Ocean. Um, it During this period, basically, it was responsible for the shipment and enslavement for more than 12 million Africans to the Americas. And of course, it wasn't just limited to slavery and enslavement here in the Americas, both North and South, but throughout parts of the world as well, including Europe, Australia, as that became about, and other places related to that. So we don't want to dismiss or take away all of this, but what we are trying to do is a lot of new information regarding Blacks, African, and African American history is coming to light more and more on a daily basis, not just globally or nationally, but specifically to us here at the Mariners Museum. And we are trying to tell more of their stories, and just incorporating additional information outside of the slave trade. Not to say we are trying to dismiss it or do away with it, just try and broaden people's understanding of the contributions that these people have made to society. So important events in the United States specifically include the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation. Both of these events, while tragic overall, did help bring an eventual stop to the slave trade here in the United States. And that wasn't the end of oppression or hardships for the Blacks and the Africans and African Americans who remained in this land, but it was a step forward in the right direction for what would hopefully become a more positive future for those who continue to live within this nation. So it was, as I said, just a step forward. The Emancipation Proclamation didn't necessarily end all slavery, but once the Civil War ended and amendments were ratified to the Constitution, change was beginning for Blacks and Africans and African Americans here in our country specifically. And here are a couple images from our collection that I just really wanted to highlight and point out specifically before I hand it over to Wisteria here. We are in the process of identifying more of the contributions to the African American community in Virginia and in the Hampton Roads area where the Mariners Museum is situated. But I just thought these were just a couple of my favorite images, several of which you will probably see throughout some of the other programs over the course of this next month. But just, I won't go too much into it because I don't want to give any spoilers away for those future programs, but I thought a lot of these did a really good demonstration of showcasing and highlighting the diverse roles that African Americans have played, again, here in the Hampton Roads area. I really love the little marching band image down there. I think the women look really cute in their skirts and everything. And then the sailors in the top right in front of the battleship there in what looks like snow and a very cold day, which I think most of us here are familiar with since we just went through a couple of days of a slight snowy period, which for anybody who's not joining us from Virginia and maybe live in a state where it's warmer now, which is probably really nice. We don't always do well with the snow and the cold here. So we're just trying to stay warm, but they look like they're, for the most part, enjoying it, those two men in the image there. So just a couple of highlights I wanted to point out. And so that's just my brief overview. I'm going to hand it over to Wisteria Perry, and she's going to talk a little bit more about programming and information that we've done at the museum here, and then what everybody has to look forward to over the next several weeks.
Thank you, Erica. Well, again, welcome to everyone. And as Erica said, Black History Month is really going to look very differently because we're used to providing a lot of our programs in our galleries, but that doesn't mean the story is going to stop just because we right now cannot be. But over the years, we've done actually a lot of different programming. This one is actually from this time last year, where we put together a program that we simply called African Maritime Collage, where we provided people with a number of different African fabrics and papers and invited everybody to come in and tell their story. And when Erica started this program, she gave you our mission. And I actually love these set of pictures because right here, this is actually the president of the museum, Howard Hagee, and he came in and actually created his own particular piece. And what's amazing is it's exactly what our mission is, connecting peoples to the world's waters, because that's how we're connected to one another. And that's really what our programs are going to be looking at, is what does and what did African American culture in the maritime world really look like. We've had historical costume interpreters and storytellers coming in. So we've had Nathan Richardson, who's very well known in this area, portraying Frederick Douglass. But when he brought Douglass here to the museum, it was really looking at Douglas's life as he's growing up in the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. That as a young man he worked the docks, and just kind of how Frederick Douglass's life looked over time, looking at that maritime culture all the way to the man that a lot of us have grown up knowing and hearing his speeches. We also had Dylon Pritchard come in and look at African storytelling. So he brought in a number of the different musical instruments and looking at how those stories have come from the continent of Africa and bringing them here to the United States and what that evolution has looked like. And we still tell a lot of these stories to this day. Now, other things that we've mentioned, we've pulled items out of our collection a little bit more and had people actually handing them. So you can see in a couple of the images, this is Erica and myself with some of those objects, allowing families and our visitors come in with white gloves and actually handling a lot of these objects. And a couple of the objects that Erica and I are both holding actually date back to the 18th and 19th century. We also have a very popular program, another member of the Department of Education, Lauren Fury, who's doing our Maritime Mondays. And this is a program that we offer every single Monday, including holidays. And it's become so popular that we've actually added 2 times on Monday. So 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and this is Eastern Standard Time. And all the books that are read have some kind of maritime connection or even to the environment. And there's an inclusion of some of the objects from our collection. And this month, Lauren has chosen the books to reflect the theme of the month. So looking at African and African American storytelling. Matter of fact, she just finished one not too long ago that I got to listen to. So the next one is taking place as actually right now as we're doing this presentation. We've also brought in other topics. So down at the bottom here, Erica is actually presenting a program and kind of looking at the history of Egypt and how that sometimes it's neglected that it's part of African history. It's usually presented as something separate. So we wanted to, again, show the richness of the continent. So taking that in mind, we have an exciting lineup for you, and there's something for everybody. So starting on February 3rd, we have one of our docents, Ed Moore, who's going to be taking a more military look at Africans and African Americans in the military. So he'll be doing his Jack Tar on the waterfront, and that's at 1 o'clock. And then we've got Dr. Cassandra Newby Alexander, who is the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at Norfolk State University. And she just came out with a book not too long ago called Virginia Waterways and the Underground Railroad. And so she's going to be doing that this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. Following the next week is Lauren Fury, and this is where Erica was talking a little bit about looking at the African Americans that helped build the Mariners Museum. And so this is going to be presented in a project that we've just started called Hidden Histories. We have quite a few images in our collection, and sadly, some of those names are missing. And so we really want to put a name to the people that have not only contributed to Black history, but contributed to the history of our local area, Newport News, and that of the Mariners Museum and Park. And then we also have 2 new series that are going to be taking place. We've got African Kingdoms and, African Kingdoms and Maritime Cultures. You might be surprised to know that there's about 20 to 40 plus kingdoms, empires that all have a maritime tie. So Erica on February 18th will be starting with ancient Carthage because, well, we love ancient history, and that was just an appropriate place to start. We also have John Corstein, who will be doing part of his Civil War series on February 19th. He's going to be looking at African American Medal of Honor recipients during the Civil War. Now, he'll be focused mostly on those that have a naval tie. And then we've got the second of our African kingdoms and maritime cultures, the Swahili coast. And then the last of our new series, and for the that we're going to be doing all year long, is that we're going to be looking at the waterways of Africa, starting with one that I think everybody recognizes, but you may not have the full background on. So we're going to be looking at the Nile River. And of course, as I mentioned, we do have our Maritime Mondays. But the other thing that we also are offering is that we have a blog series. And so every month of the throughout the year, we're giving a variety of topics. And most of the ones that we have for this month have some kind of tie and have relation to Black history. So we're very excited for what we're going to be presenting to you all, not just here in February, but throughout the whole entire year. We have a lot of stories, there's a lot of history that we want to bring to light to all of you. Let's see. So all of our programs are free to the public. You just need to have a Zoom account. So registration is free, and you can go to our website, which I think we do have our website up here. Okay. Well, actually, we got it down here at the bottom. So if you go to the marinersmuseum.org / Black History, all of those programs will come up and you can register for those. And you can also see some other programming that we'll have throughout the year. Oops, let me go back this way. So what we'd like to do for a moment is to open it up to see if there's any questions or comments that anyone that might like to ask.
Yeah, Wisteria, we got one here in the Q&A box. It says, does the Mariners Museum partner with any public school districts to promote and provide enrichment learning?
Yes, so we do have our education team. They've been working with a lot of the different school districts, so you can actually reach out to them for programs for the school districts. We also have our Speakers Bureau, and Erica and I have a variety of different programs up there related to African and African American history. So there's a number of programs that you can reach out to us, and we can get those programs out to you.
Excellent. And then it does look like we have someone with their hand raised.
Sure.
So Wanda, I've asked you to unmute if you could ask your question. Okay, I'll send that again. Maybe sometimes people accidentally hit that, but so Wanda, if you didn't mean to, that's okay. But if you did, we'll give you a second.
How can you become a member of the museum?
That is a really good question. So I believe you can go to our website and there is a membership page from there, and you have the phone numbers for Sarah Wetherell, who's the Director of Guest Services, and Nick Honesty as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And to anybody, anybody looking for additional programmings that we've mentioned here, I did add in the chat box the marinersmuseum.org website, which basically will take you to all of the information on programs we offer, both seasonally, monthly, and then year-round, including those educational programs that Wisteria mentioned. So please check that out. Again, it's marinersmuseum.org. And any questions related to membership, which we love our members. We give out stickers when you come in so that people know and recognize. We have specific member events that we do offer just for that specific group of people at times. So I highly consider anybody who's even thinking about it to learn more about that and join us here at the Mariners Museum, because we always have stuff to offer.
Absolutely. And I just saw in the chat that 2 members of our development team have put those links into the chat as well. Tim, I did see one question pop up from Patricia Thomas. Hi, Patricia. Will we be doing any talks on African American watermen on the Chesapeake? Now, we don't have that as a presentation that we're giving this month as part of what we're providing, but we are, the question was mentioned, are we partnering with other institutions? So the Northampton branch of the Hampton Public Library has scheduled us to be giving that presentation as well, and it's called Waters of Despair and Hope, African Americans in the Chesapeake Bay, and if memory serves me, that's on February 22nd at 1 o'clock. But again, too, if you're interested if you're doing it for a group, you want to do it for a private group or anything like that, you can go to our website for the Speakers Bureau and for education programming as well.
All right, well, that looks like all of the questions that I see in the chat and the Q&A, and no one has their hand raised right now. So I think you've answered
Fantastic.
everything.
All right, well, we're very excited again for all the offerings and the special speakers that we have, and we're looking forward to having all of you join us, and we're extremely excited.
And for those of you who either haven't been to the Mariners Museum before or are just waiting for us to open back up, we too are anxious about that, but we do want to be safe about it. But if you enjoyed the Black History Month programs or any of the other programs we've done throughout this year virtually, please come visit us once we are open again, because we continue doing many of these programs, as Wisteria mentioned, with much more interaction and in-person contact and communication safely, again, as we move forward. So we highly encourage you to come visit us as soon as our doors are open. It is only $1. It is $1 to get into our museum, just in case anybody was wondering about it. We do have $1 admission. So it's a great opportunity to come and visit us. And we love having our visitors and being able to speak with them in person. So if you like what you see here, please come visit us in person once you get the opportunity.
All right, well, we look forward to seeing everybody on our next program on February 3rd at 1 o'clock.